Everyone's talking about how amazing St. Augustine is, but what if there were some things that only locals would know, that might make you think twice about moving to St. Augustine? From hidden gems to real frustrations from locals, I'm going to show you the top 5 things that you're not going to be able to find in any old brochure. And stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to show you the biggest mistakes that people make when relocating and what you can do to avoid that, saving you thousands of dollars and probably months of stress. What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in St. Augustine, Florida, or anywhere in northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida. So what we're going to do in this video is talk about the 5 secrets that only locals would know and only people that actually live here in St. Augustine are going to be able to tell you. We're going to talk about one of the main complaints about living here in St. Augustine, which is the tourism and overcrowding. We're going to talk about some hidden gem neighborhoods that you're not really going to find on YouTube in many places. We're also going to talk about the affordability issue here, talk about why St. Augustine locals actually are leaving St. Augustine, and then we're going to talk about why St. Augustine is actually still a really great place to live. So let's start out with the biggest problem that locals probably have in the past 10 years, and that's going to just be, in general, overcrowding. We're talking about in downtown St. Augustine, we're talking about traffic on the roads, we're talking about just the general infrastructure and the lack thereof that has led to some of these overcrowding conditions. And that goes to traffic, but we're also talking about schools, which is one of the main reasons that people move here to St. Augustine. Now, there is a silver lining to that overcrowding, especially when we're talking about tourism and peak seasons, is that we kind of know when it's going to be, right? If we're looking at summer, we're looking at the winter holiday months, where we have our night of lights, or we look at spring break. Those are going to be the 3 main peaks of when this town is busy and when a lot of locals are feeling the pressure of so many people being here at one period of time. Many of you probably know, but St. Augustine was established in 1565, and a lot of people are going towards that downtown area and the beaches, which is where you're going to see a lot of that tourism traffic. And in 1565, they weren't thinking about 2-lane roads and highways and all that kind of stuff. They were thinking about a walkable city where you didn't have, cars. So the roads are much, much smaller. The infrastructure is just, it's at its peak capacity as it is. And that's one of the biggest problems of living here in St. Augustine for locals, is because they can't enjoy the downtown area that originally drew them to here, or that they've been enjoying their entire lives, because tourism during those times of year have made it extremely difficult to find parking, but also go to a restaurant, enjoy a nice drink, or get a drink in a timely fashion. It's just made it overall not as nice to go downtown, which the locals here completely hate. And the biggest peak of tourism is during Night of Lights, which runs from the end of November to the end of January. And it's been like that for many, many years. As a local, I know when Night of Lights is happening, and I know how to get around it. But over the past couple of years, especially since the COVID pandemic, we've seen an influx of people come to downtown St. Augustine that has made gridlock traffic a reality here where it never was before. So in turn, actually this next year, they shortened Night of Lights by about 8 days so that they could kind of focus and figure out what they need to do in order to manage this traffic and this influx of people coming to downtown St. Augustine during the peak holiday season. But here's the good thing. If you're a local, you know when to go and when not to go to downtown, to the beaches. You have a good idea of when the peak tourism is. So if you want to head to the beach, most of the locals here, they're not going to St. Augustine Beach. They're more than likely heading to Crescent Beach, where it's a lot more spread out. You can drive on the beach there with 4x4, and there's not as much tourism down there than there is on St. Augustine Beach, which is a little further north, closer to downtown St. Augustine. Most of the locals also know if you're going to the beach, you want to get there before 10 a.m., and that's for 2 good reasons. One, it gets extremely hot once you get into the afternoon, really, so you want to get out of there by noon, more than likely. But also, you're going to beat the crowds and the rush of going to the beach. You'll be able to establish your spot. You'll be able to enjoy the beach a little bit more, not being shoulder to shoulder with people. And that's going to be one of the best things that you can do to avoid all of the tourisms and the headache that comes with overcrowding. Many of the locals that have lived here for years really dislike what's happening with the tourism industry in downtown St. Augustine. But at the end of the day, tourism is the lifeblood of our town. A ton of businesses, a ton of local families rely on the tourist industry to be able to support their families. So I don't believe it's going to go anywhere. We just need to figure out how to live with it in the new normal. And if you're relocating here from somewhere else and you've lived in a major metropolitan area, not saying that St. Augustine is a major metropolitan area, but you've probably experienced a different city, a different culture, a different traffic pattern. And if you come to St. Augustine, you're going to find that it's actually pretty great. When you've just lived here for your whole life and you've seen it change so drastically over the past 20, 30 years, that's where you're going to have a problem. But comparatively to anywhere else, we got it really good here in St. Augustine. The second thing that we want to talk about in the 5 secrets that only locals know are the hidden communities that you're not really going to find when you're searching online. Many of the most popular communities that you've heard of are going to be like Silverleaf, Nocatee, Rivertown, St. Augustine Beach, Delano Beach. These are going to be the main areas that are not only going to have tourists, but it's also going to be the new construction areas as well, which are offering some of the best deals in the market. Nocatee is one of those well-known established communities that has been around for a long, long time. It's in the northeastern part of St. Johns County. The price point is much higher than the rest of the county, but it affords that lifestyle that people are looking to move into. They want to plug in, they want to get their kids going to the good schools, they want to get the best amenities for the money, and that's what Nocatee has to offer. And they want to be surrounded by like-minded people, and that's something that you've heard of. And then Silverleaf as well. It's a new construction community. It's one of the biggest in our area. 18,000 residences are going to be put there at the end of the day, but we've heard about that. We know about these communities. Let me give you a couple of communities to check out. Some I have videos on that you may not have heard of throughout the internet or just talking to your friends. So I want to give you a handful of communities that are going to enter the luxury zone. Then we're going to go to the middle of the road, and then we're going to talk about the lower end. So if we're talking about luxury and you want to be in a gated community with amenities, you better be talking about Palencia. That's going to be majority resale community. It's not going to be a whole bunch of new construction homes like Silverleaf or Nocatee may have, but it's a little bit closer to downtown. And you're actually a little bit closer to the beach there than you would be in some parts of Nocatee. Then you also have Madeira, just a little bit closer to downtown St. Augustine than Palencia, but it's going to be a smaller, tighter-knit community than Palencia, and it's going to be a more luxurious price point with bigger home sites facing the intercoastal, with Toll Brothers, Arthur Ruttenberg, all building within there, as well as Mastercraft. Then you also have Marsh Creek Golf and Country Club. This is an established community within St. Augustine Beach. My friend's mom lived there. I've spent a whole bunch of time in Marsh Creek just as a kid, and also watching her house as an adult sometimes, and watching her dogs. But Marsh Creek is a beautiful master plan community. It really started in the early 2000s, so a lot of the homes are older and will need updates, but has a golf course throughout there, has a nice amenity center there, and it's also right on St. Augustine Beach, and it's the only golf and country club on St. Augustine Beach that we have. Now we're talking about middle of the road. It's more or less like it can go up to that luxury price point, but it's more than likely going to be somewhere between like the $500 and $1 million price point. I have a couple of neighborhoods that you should keep on your radar. Number one is going to be Menendez Park. That is right off of 312, just north of St. Augustine Beach, and it borders Anastasia State Park. It's one of the most amazing communities, in my opinion, that St. Augustine Beach has to offer. Anastasia Island as a whole has to offer because of its general location to the beach, to downtown St. Augustine, and it's really within walking distance to the amphitheater. So if you love live music, Menendez Park is going to be one of those areas you've got to check out. Then there's also Lighthouse Park. Lighthouse Park is obviously around the St. Augustine Lighthouse. It's on the northern end of Anastasia Island, much closer to downtown. I'd say it's bikeable to the amphitheater, and you're going to have to drive to the beach. But Lighthouse Park has a whole bunch of cute, eclectic homes that are a lot different than the surrounding community has to offer. But on top of that, because you're north in Anastasia Island, you're actually not as much of a flood risk than the rest of the island in another area like Davis Shores, where there is a much larger flood risk. Then you have Uptown Fullerwood. Uptown Fullerwood is just the cutest little community. It's north of downtown St. Augustine, just far enough from the tourism, but just close enough to where you can enjoy the downtown and get away from all the hassle and the overcrowding that we talked about earlier. And finally, on the lower price point, there's 2 communities I want to give you. One is West Augustine. I purchased in the community. I have a video on this community. There's a whole bunch of goings on that's happening here in West Augustine that is changing the entire fabric here. Just so you know, you can probably buy a single family home here in new construction between $300,000 and $400,000, depending on what your standards are. And more than likely, if you drive on any block within this neighborhood, you're going to see a new construction home. That's an exaggeration, of course, but I'd probably venture to say 90% of blocks within West Augustine have a new build or a home going to be built within the next 6 months. Then you also have St. Augustine South. This is really going to be between the 300 and 500,000 range. I have a video of this on the neighborhood playlist as well. This is going to be an intercoastal community. It has 2 public boat ramps. Most of the homes sit on a tenth to a quarter of an acre, and the price point is going to be between $300,000 and $500,000 with no HOA. It has 4 miles of intercoastal. You do have some access there with kayaks and also the 2 public boat ramps. There are also some walking trails around there as well, but it's centrally located to the beach, downtown, and also the amphitheater. You're within a 15-minute drive to all of those things. And guys, before we get to the rest of the video, if you've gotten a little bit of value from what I've covered so far in this video, make sure you subscribe below so you stay up to date on every video that I put out. If you want to, you can also turn on the notifications button so they'll send you out an email that'll say, hey, he just posted a new video you may want to check out. And the third secret that you need to know about is that affordability has shifted pretty rapidly. Now, when you look at the nation since the pandemic, prices everywhere have shifted rapidly, and St. Augustine is no different. But we happen to be a coastal city that has historic charm and also has an amazing amphitheater, has an amazing food, arts, and entertainment scene here. So we offer something that a lot of people don't have, and we also are about 30-45 minutes from Jacksonville, which is also growing metropolitan since the pandemic. The median sale price here in St. Johns County is going to be $500,000. And if you're looking to live in downtown, you're looking to live in Volano Beach or St. Augustine Beach, that median sale price is probably going to be around $650,000 to $700,000, depending on the time of the year. So like I said earlier in the video, a lot of locals are upset about the overcrowding, but they're also upset about the affordability issue here in St. Johns County. The largest employer here in St. Johns County is going to be the public government. So think of just public admin, think of the teachers here. They're all going to be making around $50,000, $60,000 a year for the most part. The second largest employer is going to be the sheriff's office, and they're starting at, I think, $58,000 a year. Now, when we have a median sale price of $500,000, it makes it extremely tough for the locals here to be able to afford that. Mortgage rates right now are around 6.7%, and it doesn't seem like our prices are going anywhere. It seems that they're staying right where they are. We're only up 1% year over year, but since interest rates rose so quickly, our prices have kind of flatlined around that $500,000 level. But it's not all bad. There is still a ton of affordability within St. Johns County here. If you are looking to be a first-time home buyer and get your foot in the door, they have townhomes starting here in the $200,000 range. You can buy a brand new construction townhome for $270,000 within the master plan community of Cordera, which is just right off of 207. You're 10 minutes to downtown St. Augustine, 15 minutes to the beach, and 15 minutes to the amphitheater. And all in, they're going to buy down your interest rate pretty good. Your payment could be around $2,000 a month, which in today's world is extremely affordable. Not to mention, if you're looking for a single family home, you can buy over in West Augustine or maybe the Shores and get a lot more affordability. You can find a single family home between $200,000 and $400,000, which here does seem like a lot of money to the locals, but when you're looking at a national landscape, it's still very affordable. And the fourth secret is that locals are actually leaving St. Augustine. A lot of that has to do with what I just covered with the affordability. It has to do with the overcrowding. It has to do with the infrastructure. It has to do with the development of what they knew when they were growing up. People that have been living here for 20, 30, 40, 50 years have seen St. Augustine change drastically, and some of them aren't big fans of it. Now, I moved here in 1998 when I was a kid. We moved from New York, and in my opinion, when I moved here, and I was only 7, 8 years old, there wasn't a whole lot to do. St. Augustine and St. Johns County relies heavily on the beaches for, in terms of things to do. But when I was a kid, it was pretty much that and downtown, and that was it. But in my opinion, St. Augustine has grown in the right ways, and I think it's still a really great place to live, aside from the affordability issue that we have here for locals. But with that being said, many of them aren't leaving the general area. They're either going up to Jacksonville because they want a good paying job and more affordability, or they're going to Palatka, Putnam County, where they have a little bit more elbow room. You're going to be able to spend a lot less money. The median sale price there is like $215,000 and still be within a drivable distance to downtown St. Augustine and all their friends and family that they grew up with. They also have Palm Coast, which is just south of us, which is getting more and more expensive. It's also changing pretty rapidly as well, but it still offers more affordability with a similar lifestyle to what St. Augustine has. Okay, and the fifth and last secret that you need to know about is that St. Augustine is still a great place to live. Though I just covered all these reasons why people and locals alike are not digging St. Augustine as it is, if you've lived in a whole bunch of different areas, you have a good feel for what you're looking for. St. Augustine still offers the best of the best when it comes down to a coastal town, comes down to small towns, comes down to arts and entertainment, comes down to food and dining, comes down to beautiful beaches. There is a plethora of things that make St. Augustine a great place to live, especially if you're relocating from one of the major areas. I have several people comment on these videos that are from like Atlanta, that are from New York, that are from DC, and they talk about the traffic here in response to locals complaining about the traffic. And they're like, hey, listen, you don't know how good you've got it. And that's the one thing that I want to express to locals here, especially if you're watching, is we were spoiled here for so long. And in reality, we're still very spoiled today. Do we have some issues when it comes down to traffic and affordability? 100%. I'm not doubting that. But there's a silver lining amongst this, and that's that St. Augustine's a great place to live. We have great schools, we have great weather, we have great beaches, we have great food, dining, and art scene. There's so much that this little town has to offer, and the problem is that many people see that, especially when they're visiting here. St. Augustine's not perfect, and no place really is, but if you're looking for a small coastal town with a lot of charm, a lot of historical value, and always something to do, St. Augustine's the right place for you. And I want to give you a quick anecdotal story. It seems like everyone from Long Island's reaching out to me. I guess Long Island's changing pretty drastically, and they're moving here to St. Augustine. I'm guessing it's a very similar feel. I've only been to Long Island like a handful of times, so from what I've observed, I can say that it's a similar feel here to St. Augustine, but they're looking for, once a better climate, they're looking for a little bit of chilly weather, and I've helped several people moving from Long Island come here. Funny enough, I helped someone move into Entrada. They bought a $400,000 home in Entrada, and I was talking to another couple who was looking to move down here to St. Augustine. They ended up buying over in Trailmark, which is another master plan community about 20 minutes away from downtown, and just talking about how they're from the same town, and they both reached out to me separately. And I brought up the name to my second buyer, and he's like, I know that guy. I went to high school with that guy. And either way, they knew each other. They went to high school with each other, and they were familiar with each other. They both reached out to me separately and moved within the same general vicinity. So all of us are going to go out and grab a beer here shortly. But that's one of those things, is like it's a town that's right for those type of people. And if you've lived in an area like Long Island, or if you've lived in Atlanta, and you come here and you see what St. Augustine has to offer, it's pretty much a no-brainer. And with that buyer, and with those two buyers, they bought in two separate locations, and one bought a resale and one bought a new construction home. And there was a benefit to both. With the resale, he was able to get a bigger home that they weren't offering within the community anymore at a great price with great incentives that we negotiated with the seller. With the new construction, he got a brand new house, but he also got an interest rate buy down, and he got his closing costs covered. And he also got a brand new house, so everything's under warranty. So both of those situations were ideal for those customers, and we made it work for them. And they're now happy. I actually went over to my buddy who lives, his name's John, he lives over in Entrada, and I'm driving through because I'm actually going to meet another customer and show a house there. And I see him out at the dog park, and he's sitting there drinking a beer at the dog park. I say, hey, John, what's up, man? And he calls over to me, and he's like, oh, I'm the mayor of this place now. Everybody loves me. We're doing 4th of July here, and they're going to shoot fireworks. He's already got approval from the HOA. So just a little anecdotal story of like, hey, people move here and they have the idea for their dream life and what they want out of St. Augustine, and they're getting it. So here's what most people don't realize about relocating. It's not just about picking a city. It's about picking a neighborhood. It's about picking a lifestyle. It's about picking a feeling that you're looking for when you're moving. And when you're making this move, it's more than likely one of the largest moves across the country that you're going to make. So if you are looking to make the move here to St. Augustine, I offer a free strategy session where we go over what exactly you're looking for. And I'm going to give you a list of neighborhoods of like, hey, based on what we talked about, what you're looking for you and your family, this is where I think you should check out. And then it's your job to go ahead and check those neighborhoods out and see if it's a great fit for what you and your family are looking for. If you want to do that, make sure to schedule with the Calendly link below, or just reach out to me directly with my contact information. It is also in the details below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.